violent protests across multiple cities in the United States over the death of an unarmed black man at the hands of police. Hello and welcome to TRT World. We're live from Istanbul in our virtual studio. I'm Ali Canayanlar, also ahead on the program. Trump and Twitter continue to go head-to-head. The social media giant hides one of the U.S. president's tweets for glorifying violence. And China blocks a U.S. request for a UN Security Council meeting to discuss Beijing's new security legislation for Hong Kong. And repurposing an airport, the new coronavirus hospital here in Istanbul built on the site of the former Atatürk Airport. All right, good to have you here on our virtual studio broadcast. We're going to begin this hour in the United States, where protests over the death of 46-year-old George Floyd have boiled over into violent unrest. A Minneapolis police station was overrun and engulfed in flames, and demonstrations across the country devolved into clashes with police. The U.S. has not seen this scale of unrest in decades, but where is it all going? Philip O'Reilly has more on our top story.
Another day of unrest in Minnesota. The protests, which started in Minneapolis, have now spread across the United States. They have turned violent, with cars and buildings being burnt as police fought protesters on the streets. A police station in Minneapolis was set on fire.
We tried peace, we tried kneeling, nothing happened, you feel me? Now.
Meanwhile, a CNN reporter and his camera crew were detained while covering the unrest in Minneapolis, and it all happened live on air.
Officer with CNN, and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
Omar Jimenez and his colleagues were handcuffed by Minnesota State Police. Their cameras kept rolling even after the handcuffs were snapped on as stunned CNN hosts watched on. The state governor has since apologized for the arrests, and the CNN crew has been released. Well, Lionel Donovan says the violent clashes with police are a major escalation to what began as peaceful protests.
Well, as you just saw right there, things are definitely going up a notch, and things are definitely intensified throughout the week. First, this started off by just people going out into the streets protesting.
And staying in the U.S. in a test of presidential powers, Donald Trump has signed an executive order that seeks to remove the protections on social media companies. He's accused Twitter of interfering with the election after it added fact-check links to two of his tweets. Our Sally Ihan has the latest.
No fraud, really?
President Donald Trump is at war with his biggest PR platform, Twitter. On Thursday, he signed an executive order that aims to regulate social media companies. It comes as Twitter placed fact-check labels on two of the president's tweets that claimed of widespread voter fraud in the US, a claim that's unsubstantiated. Twitter's action angered the president, claiming the company is stifling free speech.
The choices that Twitter makes when it chooses to suppress, edit, blacklist, shadow, ban, are editorial decisions, pure and simple. They're editorial decisions.
All right, let's bring in TRT World Editor-at-Large, Yusuf Erim, who joins us now for more analysis on this. Yusuf, you just heard the U.S. President speak there. I mean, is this really a First Amendment issue?
Well, it definitely breaches into the First Amendment, and I give a lot of credence to what the U.S. President is saying. These are editorial decisions, and the way Twitter introduces itself or presents itself as a platform for sharing ideas. So we're seeing Twitter now blur the lines of what it was meant to be, now going into the role of publisher, op-ed, editorializing what's presented on this platform, how it's presented. And this isn't the first time we've seen Twitter do this. We've seen it editorialize a lot with other countries and other ideas coming out that we're trying to get into the mainstream. So a very dangerous line that Twitter's crossing. Also a very dangerous line with the president attacking Twitter as well. So this is definitely an area where moderation is needed.
Yeah, I mean, could we say that the landscape of social media could be changing with the president's sort of accusations of Twitter about this?
Well, social media has had free reign now for over 2 decades, so some regulation is definitely needed. We've seen how dangerous it could be in the wrong hands, whether it be meddling in U.S. elections, whether it be the murder of the U.S. Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and many other incidents where social media played a very important role. There's been a lot of suicides from social media bullying as well. So yes, some level of regulation is needed, but definitely there's a fine line between regulation and too much oversight as well. So we've seen social media do a lot of good during the Arab Spring. So there needs to be an important balance that needs to be created.
Our editor-at-large, Yusuf Adam, thanks for coming on to our inaugural virtual studio broadcast. Thanks for that analysis. Well, China has blocked the U.S.'s request for a UN Security Council meeting on the controversial new security law in Hong Kong. The Chinese ambassador to the UN said the request was baseless and called Beijing's management of the Hong Kong matter an internal one. There has been worldwide condemnation after China's parliament approved the new security law, which is seen by many as undermining the one country, two systems arrangement. The UK government announced it would expand visa rights for Hong Kong residents with British national status if China goes ahead with its plans. Well, Richard Kimber is in Hong Kong with more.
This has very quickly escalated into another big diplomatic standoff between the world's big two superpowers, the US and China. Here I am standing in the middle of Hong Kong, and frankly, I could have been standing here almost exactly 1 year ago when the extradition bill tried to be passed here in Hong Kong from the Hong Kong government, met with lots of protests in the midst of an existing US-China trade war, and we were almost in exactly the same situation with
Well, Russia has recorded its highest daily death toll from the virus. More than 230 people have died in the past day alone, taking the total to over 4,300. Russia has now reported nearly 390,000 cases. That's the third highest in the world after the United States and Brazil. Russian officials say around 10 million tests have been carried out so far, which they say is the reason for the country's low mortality rate. Well, journalist Vladimir Kozlov explains why Russia is seeing a spike in the number of deaths.
There are two explanations that we've heard from the authorities. The first explanation is that these recent deaths are actually by those patients who contracted the virus 2 or 3 weeks before, and they have been sick for